Hi, I'm Scott. Welcome to Canard Boulevard. Today, we're going to go up and show you how a Canard aircraft stalls and spins. This should be exciting. Coming up. Let's go flying.
All right, canopy shut. Run up complete. Boost pump on, mixture full rich. Canopy lock, transparent all, full rich, throttle full power. Okay, trim set. Medina traffic experimental Cozy 797 Delta Lima departing runway 1. We'll be departing the pattern to the south.
Traffic 13587 turning left crosswind, runway 01, Medina.
Alright, this is a shorter runway. I want to use all of it. So here we go. Full power. Airspeed's alive.
Turning left downwind, runway 01, Medina.
This is 50. There's 60. 65, pressure back, and there's 70, and rotate. And gear up. And let's pitch for VX. And now VY. Cylinder temps at 402. Such a nice day, I'm surprised there's not a lot more traffic up here today. Wow, it is mirror smooth up here tonight. Just beautiful. And my EGT4 is still fluctuating, so the fix I thought I didn't fix it. I think the probe must be bad. I have an extra probe. I guess I'm gonna have to put that in. I thought it was an electrical connection somewhere, but apparently not. Apparently it is the actual probe, because I've switched every other electrical connection, and it's still fluctuating all over the place. Alright, so we're climbing up here. I'm going to level off at 6,000 feet, and then I'll perform a couple clearing turns just to make sure we are all alone up here. There's 6,000. I'm going to throttle back because I don't want to pick up too much speed. Actually, we'll just do a 360, call that our clearing turn.
Before we go any further, I want to talk about stalls, aerodynamic stalls. Now, if you are a pilot and you know exactly what a stall is, what a spin is, and how that happens in an airplane, go ahead and skip ahead to the flying part of this video. If, however, you're the person who thinks a stall in an airplane has to do with the engine, then this part is for you. So what I have done is I have constructed this highly accurate and high fidelity model of an airplane that I have cut out of foam. And as you can tell, I spent a lot of time on this. So here's our airplane. We are flying along. This is a conventional airplane, unlike a Canard airplane. You can see the big wings on the front, horizontal stabilizer on the back, vertical stabilizer at the back also. It goes this way. Now, an aerodynamic stall occurs when air separates from the wing and the wing stops generating lift. Typically, you have the airplane flying along like this and the wind is coming at a direction like this, the relative wind. The airplane's moving, and so it feels like it has air moving against it because the airplane's moving through it. So that relative wind, which is what the airplane feels like the wind is doing, is coming across it. Now, if the airplane increases the angle of attack, the wind, and it's flying like this, the wind is still coming like this at an angle. Then that air has to come up and then flow over the top of the wing and then down and off the wing. At some point, the angle of attack is going to increase so much so that that air can no longer stick to the wing. It's going to come separate away from the wing, and as soon as that happens, the wing stops generating lift. Now, it doesn't happen all at once. The airplanes are designed with an angle of incidence that changes from the root to the outboard edge of the wing, so that the stall begins at the inboard edges here. You don't want it to stall out here because this is where your control surfaces are. And if you stall out here, all of a sudden you have no control surfaces, or worse, you can have control inversion, which I'm not even going to try to get into in this video. As you slow down, you're going to need more and more angle of attack to generate the lift in order to keep the airplane up. Now, there are other devices such as flaps, slats, and things, lift generating devices that can modify the wing to produce extra lift at slower speeds, and you wouldn't use that all the time because they then limit the speed at which the airplane can fly. So an airplane like this will retract those devices at high-speed cruise, and then for landing and takeoff, you'll see them come out. You've seen that on an airliner. You've seen the wings all kind of come apart during takeoff and landing. So we're going to be flying along, and as we exceed the angle of attack, the wind is going to, or the air is going to start separating from the inboard part of the wings, and you're going to feel it. You're going to feel it's kind of burbling, and if you have a stall warning device in the airplane, it's going to start going off. You'll hear an audible noise warning you of a stall. So at that point, they then know, hey, I need to push the nose over, stop the air from being separated on the top of the wing, and avoid the stall. If you don't, if you just keep going, eventually the air is going to separate from all of the wing. It's going to stop generating lift at all, and as soon as it stops generating lift, the airplane's going to fall. However, it doesn't typically happen on both wings at the same time. There's a number of reasons why. So you have a propeller that's turning the airplane one way. There's vortice. Anyways, I'm not going to get into the complexities of why one wing stalls before the other, but typically one wing will stall before the other one does. On most general aviation airplanes, it's the left wing that's going to stall first. And so what happens then is you are at your critical angle of attack. You get to the point where the airplane is going to stall. The left wing will stall. The right wing's still making just a little bit of lift, and it will fall off to one side. That's a typical general aviation stall. Pilots are taught to practice and recover from that all the time. It's right from the very basic training, and throughout recurring training, you're just doing stalls, stalls, stalls. And I'll explain why in just a moment. Then the natural reaction when the wing stalls and one wing drops is you're going to want to turn the controls to the right to get to level the airplane again, which is the wrong thing to do. And the reason for that is as soon as you turn the controls to the right to do that, this aileron goes up, this aileron goes down, and if you do that using the ailerons, you actually create more drag on one side and less on the other, and that causes a yaw. Now we have an airplane that's stalled, it's dropped a wing, and now it's yawing. So now we have this wing actually going faster, so it's still generating lift. This wing's generating almost no lift. One wing stalled, one wing generating lift, and the airplane's doing this. So that's a spin. We don't want that. The correct way to recover from a stall is by stepping on the rudder, and the reason for that is because it yaws the airplane. So if the airplane stalls, drops the left wing, the nose falls down, what we want to do is step on the high wing. We want to step on the right rudder. What that's going to do is it's going to yaw the airplane like this. It's going to generate some airspeed over this wing. It's going to pick up, and now we're pointed down, but we're actually leveled out, and then we can apply power and recover from the stall. So that's stalling and spinning in a nutshell. I'm not trying to get into ground school here. I'm just trying to explain what I'm doing and why. Recovery from a spin is similar, but again, I'm not trying to do ground school here. I'm just trying to get some aerodynamic principles as to explain what I'm doing in this video. There's two types of stalls. There is a departure stall and an approach stall. Approach stall is when you are slow, low power, the airplane's configured for landing, and it's typically you are simulating that you're coming into land. And you're not paying attention to your speed, you get the speed decayed too much, and it stalls. This can be fatal because you don't have enough airspeed and altitude, more importantly, to recover from that stall. But worse is if you are at low airspeed and you are making a turn. So the most typical one is the turn from base to final, and you are low airspeed, low altitude, and you turn and you realize, oh, I've overshot the runway, I've gone too far. So now the stall speed, and for reasons I'm also not going to explain, but when you are in a bank, the stall speed increases. So now we're in a bank, we're turning, the stall speed is increased, our airspeed is low, and we realize we've overshot the runway, so we try to step on the rudder to yacht a little bit extra. So what are we doing here? We've now generated more lift on this wing, we've slowed down this wing. Guess what? We're now in a spin and a stall. This wing's going to stall, this wing's still generating lift. Now we're in a spin and we're at 500 feet. You're dead. So stall spin at low altitude on approach is very, very bad because you basically die. And it is the cause of probably more general aviation fatalities than any other thing. That's why we keep practicing that over and over and over and over again. A departure stall is different. That is when we are climbing out, we have full power, and we're not paying attention to our speed. We let the speed decay, and once we do let the speed decay and a wing stalls, over it goes. Again, we have P factor or torque from the propeller that's helping flip the wing up. We can end up in a spin. If we are just climbing out and you end up in a stall spin, again, you're not walking away from that. All right, so now I'm going to demonstrate in the Canard how it stalls, and it stalls differently. Remember, if you haven't seen my video on Canard aerodynamics, I will put a link to it up here, and I go into this in depth. But basically, the Canard stalls first, and this wing, the main wing, never stalls. So what happens is when we go into a stall, the Canard stalls, and then it comes down. And then if we continue the inputs that cause the stall, it will just go up, and it'll stall, and it'll just do this. So that's what we're going to do in this video. All right, now that we've finished the lessons on aerodynamics and used my fantastic airplane model here, let's get back to the flying video.
All right, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to put the airplane, actually let me get away from this airport here, although we are at 6,000 feet. So I'm going to put slow the airplane down and put it into a landing configuration. So I'm going to slow it down. Or what we're going to do is simulate an approach stall here. That is when you are on approach and you let your airplane get too slow. All right, so we are now at 90 knots. I can bring the gear down as well because that's part of it. 85 knots. I'm going to bring the speed brake down. And there's 80 knots. And there's 70 knots. And what we're going to do is just pull it back until the airplane stalls. Here we go, there's 68, 66, 65, 64, 63. The airplane's, okay, and there it is. There's the nose bob. That is the Canard stall right there. Now you can see I'm holding the stick all the way back, and it does not want to stall. And I can turn, so if I want to put rudder in here, I can yaw it, and it will turn while I'm stalled. And I'm having to put significant back pressure in order to get it to do this, and I'm also having to hold the autopilot off because the G3X has envelope protection on it that it wants to push the nose forward. So I'm putting a lot of back pressure on here to keep it in the stall, and it is just doesn't want to do it. I've got the power all the way back. We're at 62 knots, and it's, you know, the nose is bobbing a little bit, but that's it. That's the stall. And I can turn while we're doing this. Now normally you would never do this in a regular airplane because it would spin. I can turn, I can yaw it. You see, it's falling back. a lot of pressure to do this. All right, so now I'm going to recover, speed brake up, and bring the gear up. We'll let the speed build up. We lost 1,000 feet doing that, so let's climb back up to 6,000 feet. And that is it. That is the uneventful approach stall in a Cozy, because the Canard stalls and that's it. You see that little bit of bob, and that's all it does. If we had more weight, if I had two people up here, you would see a more, it would be a more pronounced bob. But just with me up here and my ballast, I'm in the envelope, but not by much, so you aren't going to see as much of that bob because I don't have a whole lot of weight up here. All right, so let's get some speed up here. Now the gear's up and the speed brake's up, and we'll climb back up to 6. As you can see, that was pretty unexciting and uneventful. So the next one we're going to do once we get back up to 6,000 feet is a departure stall. Now this is the type of stall where we're going to simulate that we have just taken off and we are climbing out, we're slow, we're at full power, and we're not paying attention to our airspeed, and we let it decay to stall speed. So let's see what happens when we do that. And the airplane is going to be in a different configuration. The speed brake is going to be up, the gear is going to be up, and the airplane is going to be clean. So it does behave just a little bit differently. So I'm just circling here as I climb up, back up to 6,000. Just to make sure there's no other airplanes in the vicinity. So I did say, so my intro was kind of a teaser saying I was going to show you a stall and spin, how a Cozy stalls and spins. Well, that's it. That is the stall and spin in a Cozy, because it doesn't stall, and because it doesn't stall, you can't spin. Okay, back to 6,000. I'm gonna slow it down here, bring the power back. Actually, I got somebody in front of me, so let's turn this way. All right. So I can bring the power back. Hold the nose up. I can disconnect the autopilot, and let's bring the power up. Now 70 knots, 68, there's full power, 67, 66, 65, 64. As you can see, the nose is much higher than it was before. There's 62, and there's our stall. There's our stall bob right there. There's 62 knots. It is not going, we actually are climbing. It's stalled, but it's still climbing. We're climbing at 500 feet per minute. Full power, nose all the way back. That's as far back as I can go. I'm at 62 knots. So let's recover. Interesting, on a full power departure stall, it actually keeps climbing, because again, you can't stall it.
Madison County, Cessna 80619, turning base, runway 9, Madison.
And it turns and flies just like any other airplane that you would expect. It's fairly easy to hold altitude. As you can see, I'm holding altitude fairly easily. A little bit of back pressure in the turn. My speed's getting up there. I'm descending a little bit too much there. It's a little bit more back pressure. It's fun. Airplanes are fun. What is that building down there? I'm circling right on top of an airport that is Wayne County. I see an airplane taking off there right now. And one waiting to take off. 6,000 feet below me. You know, I feel like doing a tour of the city. There's no TFR today, so we can get in nice and close. Cleveland approach, experimental Cozy 797 Delta Lima VFR request.
And who called?
797 Delta Lima experimental Cozy.
Roger, stand by, I'll give it a briefing, we'll be right back with you. November 797 Delta Lima, was that you looking for service?
797 Delta Lima, affirmative. We are 5,800 descending 3,005. We're heading to Ashtabula. We'd like to go along the Lake Erie shoreline along the city through the Class Bravo.
November 7 Delta Lima, squawk 4616.
4616, 17 Delta Lima.
November 7 Delta Lima, radar contact 7 miles southeast of Medina County Airport and proceed on course cleared into Bravo airspace. Maintain VFR at 5,500.
5,500 for 7 Delta Lima and cleared into the Class Bravo. What the hell is the autopilot doing? Alright, switching off. Alright, let's start again. Navigation, altitude hold.
Cleveland approach, November 4649er Mike is assist on 152, 2000 climbing 3,500, request VFR flight following to Carroll County, Tango Sierra Oscar.
Alright, that was bizarre.
November 4649 Mike, squawk 4613.
4613 on squawk 49er Mike.
That was bizarre. The autopilot was trying to still descend me down to 3,500 even though I had it set for 55, and no matter what I did, it was still trying to do it, so I ended up just shutting the autopilot off, turning it back on, and now it's working correctly. I've had to do that once or twice before.
Mike, radar contact.
Yeah, usually the autopilot has done that when I was descending or climbing to an altitude, and then I changed what the target was, and it refuses to accept the new changed altitude, and it just keeps trying to go to that original one. And like I said, the solution to that is to shut it off and back on.
Caution for skydiving activity in the vicinity of the Gates Airport.
When I was doing those stalls, you notice I had to actually hold the autopilot disconnect because the G3X has a safety envelope, whereas if you go below a certain speed, it will shove the nose over. Or the same thing, if you overspeed, it'll pull the nose back, or if you bank too far,
3284 Mike, descend maintain 4,000.
it will roll you out of a bank. And if you continue to do it or don't recover, it will actually switch on the autopilot and basically do the effectiveness of hitting this level button, and that will bring the airplane straight level. So in order to do that sort of thing, is stalls and so on intentionally, you have to hold down the autopilot disconnect. So as long as you hold down that autopilot disconnect button, it will disable that envelope protection, and then you can make the airplane do whatever you want.
Now, for some unknown reason, Cleveland approach now hands me off to Buffalo approach, even though I'm about to turn west right back towards Cleveland again. I'm not quite sure why they did that.
November 797 Delta Lima, contact Buffalo approach 121.0.
2107 Delta Lima. Buffalo approach 797 Delta Lima, 4,000.
797 Delta Lima, Buffalo approach, roger. Erie altimeter 3024. Please confirm, where do you find the RNAV 9 there?
Negative. I'm not actually sure why he handed me off, as I'm about to turn westbound back across the lakeshore, so you're probably just going to give me back to him in a minute.
Okay, yeah, roger that. Stay with me for now. I'll probably have you back to Cleveland here in a second. How far west are you going to go?
I'm going to go right past Cleveland and then onwards.
Roger that.
And then, exactly 20 seconds later...
7 Delta Lima, contact Cleveland approach 128.25, 28 and a quarter.
2825, thanks, 7 Delta Lima. Cleveland approach experimental Cozy 797 Delta Lima 3500.
Number 797 Delta Lima, Cleveland approach altimeter 3024, advise when you turn westbound to follow the shoreline.
7 Delta Lima. And approach 797 Delta Lima turning westbound.
Goodbye, 1 heavy to the airport, 12 to 1 o'clock and 1 mile. Goodbye, 1 heavy, do you want the visual or the ILS for 6 left? Goodbye, 1 heavy, 3 miles from Beetle, maintain 3000 until localizer, cleared ILS runway 6 left approach.
Approach 797 Delta Lima turning westbound.
November 7 Delta Lima, roger, proceed on course. Goodbye, 1 heavy, contact tower.
It sure is fun flying this plane by hand, but boy is it hard to hold altitude at high speeds. It's really sensitive in pitch at high speed, at cruise speeds. So many coal-fired power plants in Cleveland, all along the lakeshore. Ohio's electric runs on coal.
Experimental 797 Delta Lima, how far to the west are you going to follow the shoreline?
7 Delta Lima will pass beyond Class Bravo and then turn south and stay out of the Bravo.
Alright, so you're going to continue all the way west towards past Lorain County-ish, in that area?
7 Delta Lima, affirmative.
Roger.
And here we are coming up on Cleveland. Right below us, you can see Burke Lakefront Airport. I actually had to climb 1,000 feet to get over their airspace. And right beyond that, we see I-90, which goes across the top of Cleveland. As we get a little bit farther on, you can see the Coast Guard station right by Burke Lakefront. And then we get into the downtown area. Cleveland is a small city. This is the entire downtown area. You can see a few high rises, but not much else. There are the Inner Harbor there. You can see the stadium down there on the Rock Hall, just the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, just to the left of the stadium. There's the Science Center. And that's pretty much it for the waterfront in Cleveland. You can see there are highways separating the waterfront from the city, but you can actually walk back and forth between them. And then over here we have the flats in the industrial area, which is now kind of a nightlife area, and the very famous Cuyahoga River, which was at one time so polluted that it caught fire. And that's one of the claims to fame of Cleveland, is that the river caught fire, and that is the river right there. It's not polluted as such now, but it did once. Lots of boats, lots of marinas. Here we're looking more at the western suburbs of Cleveland. If we pan over, we can see Hopkins Airport. This is our international airport, so Cleveland Hopkins. You can see a couple of parallel runways there and the control tower. All right, finished my tour of the Cleveland lakefront. I turned south, headed over top of Lorain, and then went back to Medina, my home field, and entered the pattern.
Traffic, experimental Cozy 797 Delta Lima turning downwind, runway 01, Medina. Alright, midfield downwind, gear down.
Jaga traffic, right around us. Turning final, 11 Jaga. Cardinal 182 is 2.5 to the west, straight in on the RNAV 9er, Holmes County.
County traffic, experimental Cozy 7907 Delta Lima turning left base runway 01, full stop Medina. And speed breakdown.
Canard 64 is downwind 11, full stop.
Medina traffic, experimental Cozy 7907 Delta Lima, final 01, full stop Medina.
$500.
Alright, so here's a slip, lose some altitude. And looks good. Speed looks good. Gear is down. Switch to seatbelts.
Canard 64 turning base 11.
I was trying to keep that approach in closer and come down faster. That's what, it seemed to work all right, with that little bit of a slip at the end. Down to county traffic, experimental Cozy 7907 Delta Lima, clear of 01. Alright, and that's my flight, and thank you to everyone that watches my videos and clicks on the ads, and it really helps because the revenue that I get from this channel helps pay for the fuel that I'm about to put into the airplane. So if you like what you saw here, click subscribe and leave a comment if you have any questions or comments. And if this video was interesting, hey, click like on the video. That's it. Thanks for watching.